drugs are a fruit of prohibition. We saw it happen with alcohol. Prior to alcohol prohibition, people were mainly, doing beer at low levels, wine at low levels, but then they got into very hard, concentrated forms of hard liquor because of prohibition. Yeah, they get into the harder, more concentrated forms because it's easier for them to transport that out. And then they come up with very dangerous forms of it, like wood alcohol that was making people blind. So that's the fruit of prohibition. We've talked to law enforcement officers against prohibition many times in this program to talk about the evils of prohibition, and that's just one more of them, the synthetic, concentrated forms of it.
Yeah, and I believe you had an article, David, talking about Bernie Sanders and Hillary are actually getting in on the debate, talking about the war on drugs, in particular marijuana. Now, many people are going to ask, well, why would they want to get involved in this type of situation? But as you were pointing out to me during the break, well, maybe they see that they're losing this effort in the cause and the drug war as far as marijuana. They still want to ban cocaine and heroin, and I'm not saying go out and do any of those things. Yeah, right. But, they're saying
no, it's about personal responsibility.
Yeah, but they're saying, well, okay, well, we see that we're filling our prisons with all these nonviolent offenders. Maybe we should step back at least on this particular issue of it. Yeah,
and they're going to lose if they continue to push this illegal war on drugs, if they try to challenge the states. I think that's the fundamental thing about it. We've got 1 minute left. You got a quick story there that you wanted to cover?
Well, I mean, just as we think about this war on drugs, when you're putting nonviolent people into the prison so much at the rate where you have to release violent offenders, we see murderers and rapists and armed robbers and people of this sort being released back out to the streets because, some kid who got caught with a few joints in his pocket is now serving his sentence under a mandatory minimum. It's completely ridiculous. It needs to stop. I'm not telling anybody to go out there and do whatever type of drug, but I do support things like medical marijuana, which is very ridiculous to me when people will just come down on medical marijuana. Meanwhile, you can go to the pharmacy and get high as a kite off half the stuff in there anyway.
Well, that's just it, Jakari. It's about informed consent. If they can tell you that you can't take something that you want to take for your own medical use, whether it's medical marijuana or whether it's an unapproved cancer drug, they can also force you to take vaccines that you don't think are safe and effective. Yes. So it's really fundamentally about your freedom. Stay with us. We'll be right back with an interview with filmmaker J.D. King. He's doing a film exposing the false narrative of climate change using their false icon, the disappearing polar bear.
Clean, pure drinking water. You can't survive without it. But where do you get it? Alexa Pure Pro is a brand new, groundbreaking, gravity-fed water filtration system that is like no other. The Alexa Pure Pro transforms water from virtually any fresh source into clean, healthy drinking water, pairing the unprecedented superfiltration power of an all-new gravity block core with a hybrid chromatic shell. It removes up to 99.999% of impurities, including bacteria, viruses, fluoride, disinfectants, volatile organic contaminants, and hormones. Filter capacity up to 5,000 gallons. Stainless steel construction, easy assembly, low maintenance. Replacement filters are simple to install. And now, as part of an exclusive limited time introductory offer, you can save $20 off the retail price and get free shipping. This is a limited time offer, so order your unit today and receive free shipping and $20 off. Go to InfoWarsStore.com or call 888-253-3139. The knowledge of the ancients, tried and true, trusted herbs and extracts fused with the latest nutraceutical science. Introducing the all-new Ancient Defense Herbal Immunity Blend, crafted with over 14 key ancient herbs and extracts to supercharge and prepare your body for what experts admit is the most dangerous season of the year. We have rejected hundreds of other formulations in our quest to bring you what is simply the most powerful and comprehensive proprietary formula that we have ever created in the realm of herbal immunity. For the last 2 years, our team has been working with top doctors, nutritionists, and chemists to develop the ultimate nutraceutical formulation. Experience the benefits of combining over 14 ancient herbs and extracts with exciting new advances in nutraceutical science. Now is the time to secure Ancient Defense for you and your family. Visit ancientdefense.com or call 888-253-3139. That's ancientdefense.com. Introducing Secret 12, the new INFOWARS Life Vitamin B12 formulation. Most forms of vitamin B12 are highly processed and synthetic and could not be properly absorbed by the body. That's why for real results, so many are having to turn to painful B12 injections, which are known to have higher absorption rates. Now, InfoWarsLife.com is excited to announce that we can bring you our most bioactive, powerful form of B12 that has been developed with our exclusive perfected process. Secret 12 is a binary of nutramedical grade, bioavailable coenzyme forms of B12, methylcobalamin, the same kind used in B12 injections, and adenosylcobalamin. Secret 12 is simply taken by mouth, right on the tongue, and then swallowed. No needles, no injections. Don't take my word for it. Try it for yourself. Discover the secret. Secret 12. Secure your revolutionary Secret 12 formula right now at InfoWarsLife.com or call 888-253-3139.
We've all seen the icon of climate change, the lonely polar bear floating on a broken off piece of melting down polar ice cap. That's the icon. We're going to talk to a filmmaker, J.D. King, who is directly attacking that false icon. And he's also got a couple of movies about climate change, about environmentalism, the way the government uses these things as beards. Crying Wolf and Blue. His website is bluebeatsgreen.com. Joining us now is J.D. King. Thank you for joining us, J.D. Now, I want to give people an idea of what your film is about. This is oriented towards polar bears. Let's let the trailer do the talking. Here's that trailer.
For years, we've heard about Arctic polar bears roaming ever-shrinking habitats in search of dwindling food supplies.
Rising temperatures are killing off polar bears.
The diminishing population of polar bears.
Dwindling numbers of polar bears.
Feasting on dolphins for the first time ever.
You are watching the process of extinction happen before your eyes.
Think about this. When former Vice President Al Gore was born, there were less than 5,000 polar bears alive in the wild. Today, there's over 25,000. And think about this. Right now, there's almost exactly the same amount of global sea ice coverage as there was in 1979 when scientists first began monitoring it. In fact, the Arctic sea ice grew by almost a third last year alone. But in spite of these facts, global leaders are going to be meeting in Paris to discuss cracking down on carbon dioxide emissions in the name of saving the planet. But if they can't get something as simple as polar bears right, which has been the icon of the whole entire climate change movement, how can anybody trust them with something infinitely more complicated like the global climate system?
Global warming, the whole issue is not about weather, it's about power.
The entire establishment climbed onto this global warming bandwagon because it was a wonderful way of extending its power, extending its tax base, extending its reach into people's homes and lives and properties.
Environmentalists have found here what they think is the path to demonizing energy use.
All you have to do is say you want to save the environment and you're in and you get the loot. And that's what this boils down to. Money and power. It has nothing whatsoever to do with the environment.
There are politicians, corporations, media, universities, environmental groups, and a list of many other organizations who are making untold billions of dollars off of the American taxpayer, aka me and you, in the name of saving the planet from climate change.
That's a great trailer. I can't wait to see the film. There's a great quote in there, JD, where somebody said it wasn't about weather, but about power. I think that's absolutely true. Your comments?
Oh, absolutely. The whole global warming movement, actually beyond global warming, just in the environmental realm, over the last 5 or 6 years since I've been making films exposing this, it always goes back to money, power, and control. It's something that the other side always talks about, you know, accusing the capitalist and the libertarian or the person who speaks on behalf of free enterprise in this country. They call them the greedy people, all about their pocketbooks. But the reality is all you have to do many times is just say you're for saving the planet, and you're going to get a share of the loot. Absolutely.
It's about an appeal to an authority. They use that when they're talking about the climate science, they appeal to authority. But when they talk about the political science of what they're going to do, it's totally authoritarian. We talked about this earlier, about the crackdown on free speech, regardless of which side of the issue you're on. They're going after the protesters in Paris, preemptively arresting them before the conference even began, then going after the protesters in the street. Those people want even more to be done. They don't think enough is being done to protect the planet from man-made global warming. But then the people who are on the other side, like the the head French weatherman in the national television station, he got completely censored and shut down. It's absolutely amazing, but it's totally authoritarian in what they're doing.
Yeah, absolutely, David. And what scares me about this whole thing is how they're using such extreme language. You know, President Obama and a lot of these other global leaders who are organizing COP21 in Paris, which is going on right now for the next couple of days, you know, they're equating what they're doing with fighting terrorism. And the president recently emphasized cracking down against cynicism. In other words, skeptics, people who don't swallow hook, line, and sinker everything that they are saying. And so effectively, they're calling people like me and like you and anybody else who doesn't totally buy into this whole global warming story, they're equating us with terrorists.
Yes, yes.
By and large.
It's very authoritarian, and I hope the people, even the people who disagree with us on the science, I hope they see the authoritarianism behind this and understand that these people who have that kind of orientation aren't going to give you what you think they're going to give you. They're not going to listen to you. They're not going to listen to your concerns. And of course, there's a lot of crony capitalism behind this as well. That's the ultimate power behind all this. But let's go back to your film, Vice Bear, and what we saw was a trailer there of Vice Bear. And I think you focused on, and it's part of a Kickstarter project, we should mention that if people want to try to help you to fund this to completion. I think it was great that you focused on the icon for global warming, because that's the polar bear. And that quote that you had there that you read in the trailer, there were 5,000 polar bears when Al Gore was born, and now there are 25,000. And yet the media is telling us that they're all dying, they're all starving to death on ice floes.
Yeah, and this is what the film's all about. You know, anybody stop on the street who's concerned even about global warming, and you really push them, you know, what they say a lot of times is they still fall back to the polar bear thing and the ice melting. And what we're going to do is just basically state the facts as they are. And that is, since Al Gore was born, like he said, polar bears have like gone up quadruple or quintuple in number. How can an apex predator, the largest predator that lives on land in the world, you know, it doesn't have any natural predators, and it's increased 4 or 5-fold, you know, in the last 50 years. How can that possibly be threatened? In fact, the polar bear is the only species ever to be listed on the endangered or threatened species list for what might happen to it because of climate change. The reality is this animal's thriving, and we want to tell that story.
That's amazing. You know, we're getting a lot of contradictory information from these people who supposedly, monolithically, all think the same thing. And even just that should scare the living daylights out of anybody who is a scientist. Whenever you've got everybody in lockstep and you can't tolerate any skepticism, any difference of opinions, that's a very dark time. We've seen those types of prosecutions and persecutions in the past, persecutions of people who don't toe the consensus report. And of course, science isn't formed by consensus, it's formed by real hard data. And the story of scientific breakthroughs have always been one individual standing up and challenging this unchallengeable conventional wisdom that everybody has out there. But another part of that equation, you're talking about the polar bears, another part of it is the polar ice caps, because we're getting conflicting data from NASA, for example. First, they tell us that they've increased for the most in 6 years. Then they tell us that they're going away. And then they have a clarification less than a month ago where they're talking about how that, yes, there's an increased amount of ice that is breaking off and melting on one side of the polar ice cap, but it is increasing everywhere else. So a net increase in the polar ice caps is the maximum it's ever been.
Yeah, and it's something we really want to highlight in this film, and it boils down to that. You know, if we can't trust these people, the consensus, the establishment, what you want to call them, you know, the approved scientists, if we can't trust them with something that's extremely simple, like polar bear numbers and the amount of ice on the planet, how can we possibly